Hello there. So today let's talk about the major differences between a Subto transaction and a mirror wrap, because both of these words get thrown around a lot in the creative financing world, but people don't really know what they mean exactly, right? From a very high level, they lead to very similar looking results, but the structuring and what's entailed within each of these varies drastically. So let's talk about that, starting off with a sub two transaction. So, what is a sub two? It's when you are taking ownership of the property, you're buying a house subject to the existing mortgage. So, that existing debt will stay in place and that existing debt will stay underneath that seller's name. The buyer will make a promise to pay these payments, but it's really just that. It's a promise to pay the payments, right? So you sign a contract, there's a contractual obligation, but when it comes down to it, if that buyer decides not to make those payments, there's no real recourse on them, right? And so this is leaving a big hole in the void. Like there's no real protection towards the seller. And in this case, if the buyer does decide not to make these payments, well, the best that seller can do is go and hire an attorney, go sue that buyer, and then it just goes to court. And ultimately, it just depends on what the judge decides. Now, I will say that if you do structure like this, it looks pretty poorly upon the investor because they structured this in a way that didn't offer the seller that protection. And it shows, right, from an outsider looking into this, a third party outsider. So, yeah, this does not look the best for the investor. And from the seller perspective, you're left in this void of not really knowing what happens next. So, that being said, what I consider the better way is the mirror wrap, which is an exact wrap of the existing mortgage and all the existing terms, right? So that existing mortgage, you're going to wrap a new note around that. So in this case, the seller will become the lender, and they're going to be secured via a promissory note and a deed of trust or mortgage, depending on what state you're in. And the main benefit of that is that when you secure that seller as a lender, suddenly there's a very well defined foreclosure process in place, right? You have this note, you have a very clear definition of default. And if that buyer decides not to make these payments, well, you know now the exact step that you take to foreclose on that property. Right, it's still not easy, it's still a headache, but you know exactly what happens next, and this will vary depending on your state because everyone's foreclosure process is different, but because you have this, defined process, it adds a lot more, like, of a comprehensive security to the seller, and so that's why I have this futuristic looking society here because this is considered the new way, the better way, not a sub two with this caveman hair, the old way where you don't really think about all the outcomes. You just go in and take over someone's mortgage payments, right? And then I'll end with this kind of quick soapbox talk about why it's our responsibility as an investor to really pave the correct path forward. So, creative financing is still very, very new. Like it's been done for many, many years, but it's truly become very popular in the last few years. So, when you're not doing things the correct, the kosher way, and are doing these bad practices, it lacks responsibility. And these are things that give creative investors a bad rap in the real estate world, right? So you don't want to be seen as taking advantage of people, and nor should you take advantage of people, right? So take that extra step to make yourself look better, right? And help to pave this road for investors so that we don't look like sleazy, people coming in doing janky things. We have to be ethical, we have to be responsible, and we have to practice doing what is right. And if that means a little bit more work on the part of the buyer, so be it. All right. So that's all I've got for today. If you have any questions or comments or opinions about this, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you.